Salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the podcast, the show on social awkward outcasts, crazy weirdos, and all that nerds TV talk and debate all things pop culture. With me, as always, is my co-host, the nerdy occultist, aka the Authenticator, Dalton L. Mortimer.
Hello, everyone. Full disclosure, I didn't wake up until 5, which means I didn't get out of the shower until literally 2 minutes ago. I haven't even put deodorant on yet or anything. So, yeah, that's why Brainstorm is probably thinking, why was he so late today? That's why. I didn't wake up until 5, so I didn't get out of the bathtub until just now. So that's that.
I know I won't want to be everything's but I assumed it was something like that.
Uh-huh.
Really, the only thing I was worried about was entertaining the audience before you popped on.
Yeah, no, I'm on time-ish. Although speaking of that, I probably should go put deodorant on and also take my meds so that I don't spend the next 2 hours twitching and itching from
yeah,
baclofen withdrawals and stuff,
yeah.
and
Go take
also
care of
smelling even though I just got out of the shower.
go
So
take
I
care
will
of
go
the
and I'll go and do that. 1 second.
Well, while we're waiting for Dawn to come back, how's everyone doing? For anyone who does come around. Um, it's just kind of, it's been kind of a weird, slow week. Mainly things that have come up, I've actually come up with in the last few days, but we're going to save that for next week. And I do want to mention this that we have a lot of things on the backlog that at some point we are planning to do. We're not entirely sure yet, maybe when there is truly a slow week, whenever that is, or probably for a lot of the videos, it will be during our 250th episode, which obviously is some time away. So yeah, that's all in terms of updates. Oh, and I wish. Okay, so as I should mention this, I have seen I saw the Flash movie last Monday. Just kind of my brief thoughts on it. I don't think it's as bad as like a lot of people have said it is. I'm not saying it's good either, but it had a lot of things that could work on paper. I just think it does very much fail in terms of execution. I also think, like, obviously, like the behind the scenes stuff, like Ezra Miller and things, and just everything that's happened, that's going against this movie. So. Oh, if we're going to do this, I am not a singer like Dalton, but I can read. I've actually done some poetry and things, so we can wait. So I will be reading Palinor Into the Void by Blind Guardian. That is a band that I recommend listening to the music. It's actually very good. We travel a dusty old road and carry on ultimate terror. Torture will grow while babies walk, the lunatic fears unknown. Into the fire, cursing the unknown. Into the fire, everything is gone. Then miss the point of fail the key. Wearing a lost cause unchosen. Crush another tower, grind the universe. Tear it into pieces, mourn forevermore. Here I cry for cannibals. Still I hear their voices, cry for cannibals. No more fear, no voices, cry for cannibals. Into the void this journey ends, I cry for cannibals. The dawn comes crashing down into the void. Locked up asylum, don't turn your back on your prodigal son. Still my when terror is raging, still my hate will grow. Here on my own, I build a fire, oh fire. Here on my own, I rise. Wasted life, so weak. Dark sword of black soul. My soulmate is here, deceiver, deceiver. On a dancing island, refusing going, I'm still unknown. Now I don't want to eat anymore.
Okay, I'm back.
I was just reading a song about Elric of Melbourne.
What?
I was reading a song about Elric of Melbourne.
Hmm.
Canor, the Blind Guardian song.
Hmm.
All right. I was just catching anyone up. Like just updates on like things and yeah, and I mentioned I watched The Flash last Monday.
Yeah, I heard that part as I was leaving to get my pills.
Yeah. Again, I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's great or good, but the similar discussion Don and I had on Thursday, like he has ideas that work.
Yeah. It's just not good at them.
Yeah.
Although, then again, Brainstormer is more susceptible to emotional ties than I am, which I'm
Oh no,
90% sure is why I think this worked more for him than it did for me.
I felt nothing when I was watching it at all.
Not even during the mother bits.
Nope.
I was literally, as I was watching it, I was like, well, Brainstormer's at least gonna have one thing that's gonna move
Well,
him at least a little bit.
I can't empathize with Ezra Miller. Like even if he's playing the character, I can't empathize with him just knowing everything the motherfucker's done.
Well, because apart from being an appalling little shit, he's
He's not a great
he,
actor.
he's also, well, that, but also he's the archetype of the male feminist. Anyway, on with the show. We have dilly dallied long enough.
Yeah, 10 minutes. I also want to point out this week is a Dalton week. Like everything is Dalton's.
Uh-huh.
To be fair,
Like I said last week, by the time last week's show rolled around, I already had like 3 lined up for this week, so
well,
there was that.
it's just like nothing really happened this week, to be honest. And unless like yesterday when something was
Yeah, until like Friday, Saturday rolled around, and then it was just everything.
Yeah, we'll cover those next week. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah. Don't. Yeah, I had to get the archive version for some reason because I can't because the Variety one apparently like its servers are down or something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. So this originally from Variety.com, but yeah, obviously I'm using the archive version. Original Barbie writer exited Sony's failed movie because they wanted a girl boss feminist twist on Barbie, and that's not what Barbie is.
Having seen the Barbie that actually just came out, they made it anyway. It might not be the exact same movie that they wanted to make back in like 2017, but no, if anything, I think the current iteration of Barbie is even more ideological than the Amy Schumer one would have been.
Hello, Dragon Turtle. There's a little there. Yeah, so it's written by
Hello, Dragon Turtle.
Zach Straff. It was originally posted July 7th, 2023.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, just given the title, I knew this was some. I mean,
And for the record, this probably isn't the last time we're going to talk about Barbie in the coming weeks because, oh God, the Greta Gerwig movie, I just can't. I can't with it. There's so much I would have to say, and I would have to go full MRA in a lot of places. So, yeah.
Going?
Yeah.
When Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie's Barbie finally opens in theaters later this month, or it already has, it will mark the end of a long, long journey to get the iconic Mattel doll on the big screen. Sony Pictures originally had the rights to Barbie and spent years trying to get a movie off the ground. Actors such as Amy Schumer and Anne Hathaway came and went. Schumer said last month that she exited her Barbie movie because the script wasn't feminist and cool enough. Fuck off.
Yeah, no, they quote unquote fixed it with the new one. I have seen the damn thing. It makes Birds of Prey look like Joker. I am not fucking with you. It makes Birds of Prey look like Joker, and it makes Ghostbusters 2016 look like the original Ghostbusters. It is that much of an ideological, moralistic propaganda movie.
Alright.
I wish I wish I was exaggerating even the tiniest bit. I am not. I'm planning on doing a review over on Eglinton's movie channel for the Barbie movie at some point, probably tomorrow, because Tuesday is my birthday, so I'll be busy on my birthday, obviously. But yeah, probably tomorrow though. I'm going to try to upload a review for it on Eglinton's movie channel. I love movies. And the title that I am thinking of, the title that I'm planning on going with, is Barbie 2023 is so honest about feminism it might accidentally create MRAs.
Yeah, the Barbie movie. He asked what movie did I again. Moving on.
Yes, moving on. Sorry.
You get another talent that left Barbie during the film's development at Sony was Diablo Cody. Cool name.
Yeah, I have to say that name is cool, if nothing else.
Well, it makes me wonder if it's his actual name, because I mean, people got weird names, or if it's like
a pen name, basically. Yeah.
I
hope it's a real name, but if it's a pen name, then I have to give respect for her developing a pen name. That was cool.
The Oscar-winning screenwriter of Juno. She exited the film in 2018 and told Screen Crush at the time, "I was literally incapable of turning in a Barbie draft. God knows I tried."
Mm-hmm.
Why was Barbie so hard to crack for an Oscar-winning talent? Sort of reflected on the failed project in a new interview with GQ magazine. "I think I know why I shit the bed," Curtin said. "When I was first hired for this, I don't think the culture had not embraced the femme or the bimbo as valid feminist archetypes yet." If you look up Barbie on TikTok, you'll find this wonderful subculture that celebrities that celebrates the feminine. But in 2014, taking the skinny blonde white doll and making her into a heroine was a tall order.
Dragon Turtle. Insofar as I genuinely believe that Barbie might accidentally be a men's rights movie, it's not done on purpose at all. Again, I'm trying not to spoil the review. I'm hoping to upload to Anglin channel sometime tomorrow, but the way they go about it is, and I will summarize it this way. They try to create a contrast between the world of Barbie, the Barbie dimension, if you will, and the real world. And they do this by trying to play the gender switch card. They try to play the what if Barbies treated Kens the way feminists think that patriarchy treats women. The problem for the writer directors that actually kind of makes me like the movie is they are so bass-backwards and so ideological that their version of the absurdist gender switcheroo straw man is actually closer to how men actually are than the quote-unquote real world and all of its patriarchy. So in other words, when they're trying to be somewhat serious and satirical, they are abjectly absurd. And when they're trying to be purposefully abjectly absurd, they actually are more reflective of reality, and they think they're being absurd. That's why Barbie is a inadvertent men's rights movie. Yeah.
Sony's plan to pair Cody's idiosyncratic writing style with a crass comedian like Schumer didn't have the writing remembered. An idea of an anti-Barbie made a lot of sense given the feminist rhetoric of 10 years ago. Cody said. I didn't really have the freedom then to write something that was faithful to the iconography. They wanted a girl boss feminist twist on Barbie, and I couldn't figure it out because that's not what Barbie is. Is that wrong?
Well, bad news, Miss Diablo Cody. Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach figured it out just fine. Trust me.
To stupid degrees, but you know. To stupid degrees, but you know. Moving on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Cody also said the Lego movie loomed large over the development of Sony's Barbie movie. The 2014 animated comedy was a massive critical and commercial hit for Warner Brothers, grossing $468 million worldwide and landing Oscar nominations for Best Animated Feature and Best Original Song. The Lego movie took a brilliant meta approach, bringing toys to the big screen, and Sony wanted to emulate that for Barbie. I mean, to be completely fair, while yes, it had meta-ness, I'm not going to deny that, it was also a very genuine movie. Like, it had very... You know,
yeah, it was a love letter to Lego. And again, I hate to burst this particular bubble, but I'm sorry that Diablo Cody and I forget who they said the original director was that they had in mind at Sony couldn't make this movie, but Greta Gerwig, Noah Baumbach, Ryan Gosling, and Margot Robbie basically did make this movie. The movie that they're describing, the movie that basically is the Lego movie if it were an ideological propaganda piece in the name of feminism. And not egalitarianism painted pink kind of feminism, but the neo-Hegelian oppressor-oppressed dichotomy conspiracy theory of the patriarchy kind of feminism, a kind of feminism that you'd see in something like you'd see from someone like Bell Hooks, and of course Anita Sarkeesian or Eve Ensler or Gloria Steinem or those varieties of people. It's not the kind of feminism that Christina Hoff Sommers, Camille Paglia, or Warren Farrell circa before 1990 could have gotten behind. It's the very much critical theory infused gender studies feminism in all of its glory and retardation, frankly. This Barbie movie is in the same category as Velma or the New Warriors. It's in that same kind of category that is feminism taken to such its logical extreme that it might actually end up pissing off feminists because they don't like the
Truth.
actual conclusions to their beliefs.
What's weird because all the promotional stuff I saw of it, actually, set design wise, at least for the Barbie world, was pretty good.
Yeah, the part of the movie that is the least objectionable is the Barbie world segment. But again, you have the writers accidentally going so feminist that they actually wind up on the other end of the horseshoe and go full MRA.
Mm-hmm.
But Barbie 2023 is a confirmation, if nothing else, of horseshoe theory. You can apparently go so feminist that you wind up being an MRA by accident.
You know what's funny? I legitimately think, like, all the Robot Chicken sketches of Barbie and Ken and all that,
mm-hmm.
probably would make a better version of the Barbie movie.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. Even without all the ideological gobbledygook, the movie isn't even that original. But like I said, I don't want to spoil my review of the movie too much, so I will just leave it there and we'll move on.
Yeah, we got just like paragraph left.
Mm-hmm.
I heard endless references to the Lego Movie in development trilogy, so it's amazing, and it created a problem for me because they had done it so well, and anytime I came up with something meta, it was too much like what they had done, the Roblox movie. And really, but enough time has passed that they can just cast Will Ferrell as the antagonist in a real life Barbie movie, and nobody cares because he was the antagonist in the movie.
About that, Will Ferrell actually isn't the antagonist of the Barbie movie. Even though the trailers made him look like the antagonist, and even though it's very much a cartoons taken to the real world cliche that the evil business tycoon would be the antagonist, he is only the antagonist for the first act of the movie, really. The actual antagonist, and I swear to you that I tell no lie when I say this, according to the movie, is Ken. Because Ken, you see, as I said, in Barbie Land, Kens are second-class citizens. And the movie thinks it's being clever with this and playing with the, historical oppression of women derp. But what it actually ends up doing is portraying, honestly, male vulnerability better than any movie I've ever seen. Unironically. Because Ken feels useless unless he is being of use to someone, and in particular, he wants to be particularly of use to Barbie. But of course, Barbie only wants him around when she needs him to do something for her, and or to act as an accessory to her to validate her own idiosyncrasies.
Again, just want to point this out. If the roles were reversed, a lot of people would be up in arms about it.
But also more to the point, that's actually somewhat reflective of actual male psychology. But that's not what I'm getting to. But when Ken and Barbie go to the real world, because Barbie is malfunctioning for reasons that I'm not going to go into, Barbie is of course horrified because this is the real world of feminist imagining, the patriarchy, quote unquote. But Ken finally feels seen and cared about because and this is the thing. Someone does something as simple as ask him what time it is, and he feels validated because someone actually gives a shit about what he thinks and sees value in what he thinks. And again, because this is a feminist movie, that results in him doing a bunch of research on the patriarchy because Barbie essentially finds him useless and tells him to go the fuck away when they get to the real world at some point. And so he winds up in a library and in a couple other locations where he reads a bunch of feminist literature about the patriarchy. And he thinks that this is the most glorious thing he's ever heard because Ken's men can actually be useful for something other than pleasing Barbie in such a system. So he takes the patriarchy of feminist imagining home to Barbie World. And the Kens are in control of Barbie World in less than a day. And the Barbies are quote unquote brainwashed to serve the Kens. And of course, the movie engages in a bunch of dude bro stereotypes at this point. But even underneath all of the gasonification of Ken, even underneath all the dude broism, he's still probably the most sympathetic character in the movie because it's made very clear that his motives or his motivations are rooted in actual simulacra of male vulnerabilities in real life. And the actually funny thing about the movie is the people behind the movie don't realize they did that. They think they were being clever by having men in Barbie world serve the function that women quote unquote used to in the history of feminist imagining. But in actuality, they accidentally end up they actually end up portraying actual sympathetic male vulnerabilities. Now, Ken channels those actual simulacra of male vulnerabilities into basically what amounts to dude bro stereotypes, but one, it's a feminist movie, and two, it actually is a somewhat meaningful parallel to, when men in real life have the feminist whispering in one ear and the traditionalist whispering in the other ear. Of course, they wind up finding people like Andrew Tate, because at least people like Andrew Tate, for as stupid and counterproductive as they are saying that men can have value beyond serving other people. And in that way, again, the movie winds up being good if and only if you actually see Ken as the bumbling hero and Barbie as the villain who doesn't realize she's a villain. But if you take it as read, it's a fucking feminist diatribe. If you see it the other way, the way that I don't think the filmmakers intended, it becomes an accidental men's rights piece. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, pretty short article actually. So, not gonna lie, that's surprising, but because see. Because the next article was hidden behind the paywall, I got another archive version.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we should just start going to archive. This has been happening a lot recently.
So this is originally from Fortune.com. Bob Iger says Disney will cut back a lot of Marvel movies and series, frankly, it diluted focus and attention. This is written by Chloe Taylor and published July 14th, 2023.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, initially, I get it, but again, it is kind of the thing we've been saying for a while now. It's not really, um, it's more the quality issue than anything.
Yeah, this is a classic syllogism, a classic half truth. Because yes, the overabundance of content probably did stretch the creatives, in particular the CGI artists, too thin. I mean, look at She-Hulk. But even without the stressing of resources, the quality and the writing quality in particular is a massive clusterfuck. And the more you avoid dealing with that, the more this is going to happen, no matter how much you keep focus on one particular project at a time. I'm not going to say it's not a good idea to scale things back, because again, it is half true that some of the issue is stretching people too thin and cramming so much in at once. But that's only the incidental part of the problem. If you're not actually going to address the nature of the content, the amount of content is meaningless.
Disney is planning to cut down on Marvel movie and TV releases as the company looks to reduce costs and avoid superhero fatigue.
Not a thing. Look at The Boys, look at Invincible, look at My Hero Academia.
Quality fatigue, isn't it? Lack of quality fatigue, really.
Yeah, to paraphrase the mighty Sam Jackson, quality motherfucker, do you speak it?
Yeah. Is that really paraphrasing, or is it more or less parodying?
Well, either or. It's not like Sam Jackson is above parodying himself. Look at Snakes on a Plane.
I know. I'm just saying, like in terms of definition, I would say it's more parodying than paraphrasing. Because my understanding, paraphrasing is more or less like to make a long story short.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. But moving on anyway.
I mean, I could be totally full of shit. That's how I've always kind of recognized paraphrasing. Like, if nothing else, like an interpretation of what someone said. You know? But
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Anyway, moving forward.
Yeah. In an interview with CNBC on Thursday, Iger said Disney would be slowing down when it came to putting out content for its Marvel and Star Wars franchises. He admitted that many decision makers have been focusing on pushing through projects that would prop up Disney Plus, noting that recent Marvel content was a major reflection of the zeal that has been directed at the company's flagship streaming platform.
Bob, I hate to burst it. Actually, no, I love bursting this particular bubble, but it must be pointed out that Disney Plus was your baby. It was your idea. It was the thing you pushed the hardest for. So if anyone is accountable to the surplus of content on Disney Plus, that would be you, because Bob Chapek was in charge of things nominally for less than a year and didn't really greenlight many projects of his own during that time. He mostly just carried on with inertia for a couple months, doing the things that you would have done anyway. So yeah, no. If anyone's accountable for Disney Plus being a fuck up, it's you, because it's your baby. Sorry.
Marvel is a great example of that. He told CNBC, it had not been in the television business at any significant level. Not only did they increase the movie output, but they ended up making a number of TV series. Frankly, it diluted focus and attention. I mean, technically, he's not wrong.
Again, it's a half truth, but it's one of the more superficial half truths, because it's not like the surplus of content and the stretching of your creatives too thin wasn't a problem. But if you fix it, but you don't fix the nature of the content, i.e. the quality thereof, it's only going to serve to exacerbate the problem. Especially because a lot of the reasons why Disney Plus shows aren't connecting have nothing to do with production values. They have to do with people using the platform of Marvel, or of the MCU, to create ideological propaganda pieces. Look at She-Hulk. Look at Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was basically BLM the show, and She-Hulk was basically feminism the show. And again, it wasn't the egalitarianism painted pink that most people think of when they're trying to be charitable to feminism. It was the neo-Hegelian oppressor oppressed, the patriarchy is a giant conspiracy, subpar men are toxic nerds, yada yada yada, sort of feminism.
Earlier this year, Disney announced a broad restructuring program that would see the firm cutting $5.5 billion in costs. Cutting back on franchise-driven content, like I said, would insist with this endeavor.
Again, if you don't fix where that money is going, this is only going to superficially address the problem.
You pull back not just to focus, but also as part of our cost containment initiative, which means spending less on what we make and making less.
Okay, this is where I'm going to say something objectively true, but probably controversial sounding. The amount of money you're spending isn't the problem. It's how you're spending it. Because here's the biggest problem of all of these big budget blockbusters. It's not that they exist, it's not that they cost a bunch, it's that the money you're spending isn't on screen. Which, that is the number one rule of movie making for public consumption. If you spend money, the first place that money should go is on screen. And if you don't somehow put that money on screen, it is better not to spend it. Not because spending money is bad, MK, which is a lot of the criticism I've seen levied from even people on our side of this issue. Because here's the thing. If you spent the money and the end product was worth the money, it would make its money back. Like, turn the clock back 5-6 years, and every Marvel movie was, $1 billion picture, or very, very close to it. And so it didn't matter that they spent, 250, 300 million on every given movie, because it appealed to a wide enough audience, and it appealed to them strongly enough. That's the other thing, that they were willing to pay for it, and therefore it made money regardless of how much money you put on it. But the more money you spend on something, the wider your appeal, or the stronger the pull of the quality of your product has to be. It's not that you spend the money, it's A, how you spend the money, and B, spending it in a way that people will want to see the end product. Because if you are spiteful to your audience, if you alienate your audience, if you narrow your audience deliberately, then spending money becomes a problem. But only then. It's not that you spend the money, it's that you're not smart in how you spend the money, and the money isn't on screen or indicative of the quality of the product in any way. That's the issue, I think.
Yeah. I think I kind of actually have an example of this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. I mean, I don't also check the. I never really check how much money is put into a movie, but I'm more or less guessing at this.
Mm-hmm.
Two movies I've seen within the last 2 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
First one I saw 2 weeks ago was Transformers: Rise of the Beast, which I enjoyed. Not perfect, but a lot better than a lot of the other Transformers movies, which I realize is a high bar, but
Yeah, but it's better than everything but Bumblebee. Unfortunately, that's not really a compliment because everything but Bumblebee is shit.
I still think it's good though.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and like I said earlier, I recently watched The Flash on Monday. Relatively speaking, I do think The Flash had more money than Transformers.
Yes, but it also looked cheaper by a wide fucking margin.
Flash or Beast, which one was cheaper?
Flash looked cheaper than Rise of Beasts.
Right. But to be fair, the director said that they intended the CGI was bad in some cases, which I doubt is more or less covering his ass on that thing.
Yeah, that's world class copium. That's uncut Colombian copium there, I think.
Okay, but my point is the quality of the storytelling in both of those movies. Which, okay, Don, you remember how earlier you said what could have got me were like the emotional scenes,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't. One, and I have a couple of reasons. One, they didn't allow those scenes to really breathe. Time to like sink in and build a connection with the two characters.
Mm-hmm.
And two, again, the acting wasn't helping me.
Well, yeah, but and I will add on to calling back to my point that I made earlier, about the money should be on the screen. There is no earthly reason why CGI in the modern age doesn't look amazing. 20, 30 years ago, you had an excuse. It was a new technology. There wasn't sufficient computing power to render shit, yada, yada, yada. But just for the record, everyone, all 3 Matrix movies are at least 20 years old at this point. All 3 of them. The first Avatar is 13 and now 14 years. Is now 14 years old. Same thing with Inception. Something like Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets is, I want to say it came out in 2016, so almost 8 years old now. Yeah, but so 7 years old now. Point being, if you and to be fair, you don't even have to put that much money into things to make CGI look good. Look at Annihilation. Look at a bunch of different computer animated movies. Look at look at look at Super Mario. Look at Detective Pikachu. Look at Deadpool. Deadpool had some CGI in it, and it was made for $50 million.
I'm sorry, Don, but I can't. Just like with the comparison of the Flash and Rise of the Beast. I don't mean to cut you off. I get your point.
But the point I was making is, if you spend $200 million, $300 million on a movie, then there better be $200-300 million worth of visuals in the damn movie.
Right.
Especially if it's a VFX heavy blockbuster.
Right. What I was going to say was, I think one, you can tell that between the two movies, Rise of the Beast had more effort and care put into it than the Flash.
Mm-hmm.
Because, well, one, I did watch behind the scenes stuff, and yeah, a lot of the actors, like, and even the director, who was like a big fan of Transformers and stuff, really talked about that. And yeah, I think it's evident that you can tell when someone, when you watch like a movie or a show or something, that there was passion put into the project. Where obviously with like the Flash, there wasn't, mainly because of, again, like all the behind the scenes stuff, like so many directors and writers were going through that.
And Warner Brothers was constantly changing its mind which direction they wanted to go, and they were constantly trying to course correct from what the fan backlash was, or deliberately spiting the fans because they didn't like the fans, yada yada yada.
Yeah. And so again, it's just like that weird thing of like, yeah, again, the whole quality thing, but also the whole like passion in the project as well.
Well, yeah, and again, back to what I was saying about the money thing. Oftentimes in big blockbusters that go bad, you will hear the complaint from a lot of people: where did the money go? And here's the thing: if you're watching a movie and you're asking where the money went, that means that someone somewhere didn't use that money well. Because in movies that actually use their money well, you don't have to ask that. Again, the Matrix trilogy, all three of them are 20 years old. Inception, even though I fucking hate that movie because it's awful and pretentious like most other Christopher Nolan movies, even though I fucking hate Inception, you don't have to ask where the money went. Even though I really, really fucking hate Avatar because it is both annoying, pretentious, and like 20 years out of date in terms of its storytelling. You can tell where the money went in Avatar, and so on. But in The Flash, you're left asking yourself, where the fuck did the money go? And if the answer is anywhere other than on screen, you've done fucked up somewhere. Moving on.
Best guess, it went to a lot of the marketing, even though there was very little of it.
Well, but here's the problem with that. Here's the problem with that. They don't include marketing in production budgets. That's why you'll always hear anyone who talks about the box office always cite the doubling point or the 2.5 multiplier in box office. For a movie to be successful, it has to double it can't just break even, but it has to double its money. The reason being is because you can usually, again, this is a rule of thumb, take the production budget and double it, and you have the production budget and the marketing. So you can't even use the excuse of, well, we had to put the money towards marketing, because it's standard practice in the industry that you don't include the marketing budget with the production budget. You take the production budget and you double it, and then you have the marketing budget.
And they went on, like, I guess it was sort of a tangent, even though it's technically tied to what was said earlier.
Yeah.
Anyway, back on track here. Iger's big bet on Marvel. The conversation came a day after Disney announced that Iger would stay at the helm of the entertainment giant for 2 more years after initially planned, extending his contract through 2026. He returned to the company in November after just 11 months away, agreeing to a 2-year contract as CEO that saw him take over from successor and predecessor Bob Chapek.
Again, he was only in charge for less than a year, and he really didn't have much time to actually make decisions during that time. He mostly just let the Bob Iger approved slate play out. And the only thing he really did do was not antagonize Ron DeSantis. And for this he was public enemy number one, even though it was the correct thing to do.
Oh no?
Yep.
During Iger's 15-year tenure as CEO, House Mouse made some of its biggest bets in the company's history, acquiring Pixar, Marvel, 21st Century Fox, and Lucasfilm. Under his leadership, Disney's market capitalization increased fivefold. Marvel has been an excellent investment for Disney. It's paid for billions for the rights to the comic book franchise in 2009, and it earned more than 22.5 billion from the acquisition by the end of 2022.
Because back in the old days, the focus for Marvel was on what? Quality, and of course, making sure that they put the money they spent on the fucking screen.
Mm-hmm.
And recently, they've stopped doing either. So naturally, they've started going downhill.
Avengers Endgame, the 2019 Marvel smash hit that remains the second highest grossing movie of all time, raked in 2.8 billion at the global box office, and is just one of 10 Marvel movies that have crossed the billion-dollar milestone. Wait, yeah, in 2019?
Yeah, Endgame was 2019. Infinity War was 2018.
No, it's just I didn't think it was that long ago.
COVID happened, remember? Nothing really came out during COVID.
No, COVID was 2020.
And most of 2021.
Right, we went through like 6 years with COVID.
Yeah. Again, I swear to God, someone in like the upper management of the universe was like, shit, we forgot to put a bunch of historically significant events in the decade from 2010 to 2020. Fuck it. We'll just put all of the historically relevant events in 1 year and it'll be fine.
Mm. I mean, I don't really have anything to say to that, to be honest. Moving on?
Yep, moving on.
Superhero fatigue.
Not a thing.
Yeah, it's more of a lack of quality fatigue than anything else.
Look at Invincible, look at The Boys, look at My Hero Academia, look at various other like superhero adjacent things. Look at the DC animated universe. The list goes on. It's not about the genre. And the only reason why people want it desperately to be the genre is because there are a bunch of old guard film snobs who always hated the superhero genre and have been begging for it to fail pretty much since it came on the scene in 2008 as an actual genre unto itself. Every time a Marvel movie looked even remotely weak or even remotely like it might be unusual or too far, you got so many articles going, will this be Marvel's first bomb? As they secretly, cross their fingers and hope to death it is. So, yeah, no, the whole superhero fatigue nonsense came from people who've always hated the superhero genre and always wanted it to fail, i.e. people who have been fatigued, quote-unquote, about the superhero genre pretty much since Iron Man came out, if not the first Avengers movie. So, superhero fatigue straw man can go fuck itself, just like the escapism straw man can go fuck itself.
Right. In a bid to maximize earnings from the brand and more recently lure viewers to the sorry, let me read that. In a bid to maximize earnings from the brand and more recently lure viewers to Disney Plus streaming platform, Disney has ramped up the rate of Marvel releases in recent years. Since 2017, the studio has released at least three movies a year, and the three releases, Thunderbolts: Captain America: Brave New World, and a Deadpool sequel already on the agenda for next year, until 2016
Hey, I got you a garlic pizza, right?
movies.
You can always get pepperoni on that. Alright, that made a big deal that they fucking can't, so now I'm gonna go rip their ass over.
Sorry, my brother distracted me. He wanted to say something to me while we were on air. Anyway, sorry, what did you say? I missed like the last minute or so.
Okay. Since 2017, the studio has released at least three movies a year. The three releases, Thunderbolts: Captain America: Brave New World, and a Deadpool sequel, already on the agenda for next year. Until 2016, Marvel put out one or two movies each year. Okay.
Again, it's not the amount, it's the quality. If Marvel was still producing hit after hit, just like they did in like between like 2014 and 2018, no one would give a fuck. They would just be grateful that they had good movies again. And if DC ever gets off their ass and figures out how to actually compete with Marvel, people will also probably warm up to them eventually. The problem being is DC has been running on so much borrowed time since 2013 that it's going to take a lot of doing to convince people to show up for a DC movie again. Then again, Joker was the first movie to make $1 billion, and they only spent 60 million or so on that. So yeah, clearly it can be done. Aquaman also made $1 billion. Aquaman, mind you, the character who is everyone's punching bag.
Without good reason, I think that.
Well, but my point is that that's the other straw man you always hear now. Oh, why are you trying to make a movie about this obscure character? What? How can you expect people to give a shit about this obscure character? When go back 10 years or so, and I will remind everyone that Marvel had actually sold off all of their popular characters during the bankruptcy crisis. They sold off Spider-Man. They sold off Fantastic Four. They sold off the X-Men. They sold off the Hulk, and those were the four biggest Marvel properties. Back in the day, before the MCU got rolling, almost no one had heard of Iron Man. I knew about him mostly because of comics knowledge, but also because of a very short-lived animated series in the 90s. And the same can be said of Captain America, and the same can be said of the same can be said of quite a lot of other characters that basically cameoed in either the X-Men franchise or the Spider-Man franchise during that time period. So every Marvel character has dealt with some level of B tier status or obscurity. Hell, Doctor Strange 2 is the movie that has made the most money since Phase 4 started. It almost made $1 billion during COVID, mind you. It was only $50 million off from $1 billion, and mind you, Marvel movies tend to make between 50 and 100 million in China, where Multiverse of Madness was not released, partially because COVID and partially because China has a bug up its ass about the supernatural. But either way, had China been open as a market to Doctor Strange, it would have performed at least as well as Captain Marvel in China, and therefore would have made between $1 billion and 1 billion, 1,100 million. So the only reason why Doctor Strange, and I love Doctor Strange. I love Doctor Strange probably more than more than, I would say, 99% of the planet. And I only say 99 because I know at least 5 people who are more obsessive about Doctor Strange than I am. One guy in particular, his name is Sanctum Blog on Twitter. He is the foremost Doctor Strange collector on the planet, and he is the one person I know who can out geek me when it comes to Doctor Strange. But point being, Doctor Strange is a very obscure character, and yet the first Doctor Strange made more than Man of Steel, i.e., Doctor Strange made more than a Superman movie, and the second Doctor Strange is the most successful movie of Phase 4 and 5, and almost made a fucking $1 billion. So it's not the obscureness of the character either. Because if you take an obscure character and you make them compelling and explain to the normies why they were wrong to not give the character a chance when they were in the comics to begin with, which, by the way, is why I like when superhero genre takes on obscure characters. Because it can prove the normies wrong. It can say, this character's existed for 60 years and you never gave them a chance. Let me show you why you're wrong. But yeah, it's not the obscurity of the character. It's not the superhero fatigue straw man. It's not the escapism straw man. It's just the difference between Marvel when it was doing well and Marvel now is before they used obscure characters and made those characters compelling enough for the normies to show up and realize they were wrong. And now they're still using obscure characters, but they're not paying attention to the thing we call quality. And so it's crashing and burning.
So good. Gentle ask. So are these guys like the normies where they don't like fantasy, sci-fi, zombie, supernatural, etc., or specifically superheroes, or a bit of both? It's just having a special place in the world.
I would say it's a little bit of, if you're referring to the old guard film snobs, I would say it's a little bit of both. If you put a gun to my head, I would say the reason why they hate superheroes more than they hate even something like fantasy or sci-fi is because superhero genre is even more niche and nerdy than fantasy genre or sci-fi genre, specifically because it can take, and mind you, this is why I like superhero genre, but superhero genre is considered even more niche because superhero genre is able to take something like fantasy genre or sci-fi genre and turn it up to an 11. I make it even more upscale, high concept, and absurd. Also, it must be said that fantasy genre and horror genre and sci-fi genre at least have something resembling a veneer of adultness in their ethos somewhere, whereas ever since Frederick Wortham, the ew nerdy kid stuff straw man has been well and truly wedged into the public consciousness and will not fucking go away no matter how much I try to kill it. But I will kill it someday. I will slay that Balrog of stupidity. Damn it. These are my goals in life. I want to kill the Balrog straw man of the kid stuff specter at some point. If I can manage that, then I will at least have done something worthwhile. And curse you mortality salience that comes along with my birthday being soon. Fucking hell.
Alright, television is where the company has really upped the value. 6 original Marvel series being released on Disney Plus in 2021 and 2022, and a further 5 coming to the platform this year. However, some of the studio's most recent releases have struggled to whip up the same level of excitement as its earlier fire hit.
Again, that excitement would be there if you focused on quality and making sure that people see the money you put into things. And my proof for this is compare the reaction to WandaVision when it first came out and WandaVision at the end of WandaVision. When WandaVision first came out, it was one of the biggest things ever. People only soured on WandaVision when the writing turned to crap at the end of the episode, at the end of the season, and Wanda was erroneously framed as sympathetic when she wasn't, and wasn't treated enough like a villain when she should have been. Those are the things that turned people off. And it was that kind of let's let the characters off model for ideological reasons that turned Disney Plus into crap. Whether it's, hey guys, let's frame this obviously villainous character sympathetically because feminism, which they did with Wanda, or let's take this enjoyable, vivacious, bubbly character and turn her into a shrewish, middle-aged feminist harpy like they did with She-Hulk, or hey guys, let's turn a Captain America spin-off into a pro BLM, pro open borders attempt to suck off Antifa, like they did with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's that kind of bullshit that people got annoyed with. It's not the characters. It's not the obscurity of the characters. It's not the escapism straw man. It's just you're trying to use art as a weapon, as an ideological, moral, and socio-political weapon, and it should not be those things. End of discussion.
Yeah.
Yep.
By a strong opening weekend, February released Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania's global ticket sales slump, with the film peaking $470 million worldwide. That's not much more than pandemic-era releases Shang-Chi and the Legend of Ten Rings and Eternals, which earned $432 million and $402 million respectively, global box office. And
Yeah, because
sorry, I just want to finish a second.
yeah, go ahead.
And it's a far cry from many of the studio's earlier lightweight heavyweights, including the earlier films in the Ant-Man trilogy, which both earned more than $500 million in ticket sales.
Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing. I will give you that COVID impacted the box office somewhat. Just like I mentioned earlier with Doctor Strange. It easily could have made $1 billion to $100 billion and $100 million if it got released in China. And likewise, No Way Home made almost $2 billion and only failed to cross the 2 billion threshold because it also wasn't released in China, and things that are released in China, or the Marvel movies that get released in China, make, give or take, 50 to 100 million in China. So, you know, in both cases, whether it be Doctor Strange or whether it be No Way Home, you can knock off about 100 million of that, or if you want to be charitable, you can add about 100 million of that back for it not being released in China. However, the fact that No Way Home made almost 2 billion and Doctor Strange made almost $1 billion tells me that COVID is not a very substantive excuse at all for movies underperforming. Hell, Venom was also, I believe, released during COVID, wasn't it? And it made 800 million or so, the first Venom.
Sorry, I'm gonna look it up real quick just because I get it. First Venom or Let There Be Carnage? The first Venom movie or Venom Let There Be Carnage?
First Venom.
Okay. That was 2018.
Okay. What about Venom 2?
Yeah, that was 2021.
Yeah. So still round about COVID era.
Yeah, October 1st. Just now. made 506.9 million with a
Yeah,
$100 million budget.
which is higher than both Eternals and Shang-Chi, and of course Black Widow. So again, while there is some allowance for COVID there, clearly a movie people actually want to see, they are willing to risk it for even during COVID. They were willing to risk it for movies they wanted to see. They just didn't want to see Black Widow, Shang-Chi, or Eternals because Shang-Chi was honestly just generic, nothing to write home about. Black Widow was badly written and should have come out around the time that Captain Marvel 1 came out. And Eternals is the worst Marvel movie made by the actual Marvel Studios. There are worse movies that are based on Marvel properties, but there are no worse brand Marvel movies than Eternals.
We talk about that ad nauseum. We're not going to bring that up here all the time.
Yeah, the long story short is they did literally the opposite of what they should have done, and they should be ashamed of themselves. And I hope Robert Rodriguez gets hired to fix Eternals when they make Eternals 2, if they make Eternals 2.
Like, ever since you brought that up, I've really been thinking about it, and just looking at like his earlier movies, like Spy Kids and stuff.
Yeah, Spy Kids, especially Shark Boy and Lava Girl. It's very, very Kirby-esque.
Yeah. Wait, sorry. You gotta stop doing that. You really gotta stop doing that.
But point being, the reason I say Robert Rodriguez would be perfect for Eternals is because the main problem Robert Rodriguez has is not a lack of imagination, but a lack of resources. Look at his more like action or superhero adjacent movies like Spy Kids, or especially like Shark Boy and Lava Girl and We Can Be Heroes. His aesthetic sensibilities, Robert Rodriguez's aesthetic sensibilities, are very Kirby-esque when it comes to superheroics. And we've seen also that he can do amazing things when he's given the resources and money to do them, vis-a-vis Alita Battle Angel. So imagine what Robert Rodriguez could do with his Kirby-esque sensibilities, with Marvel's money and resources, and Jack Kirby's crowning achievement of weirdness, which was Eternals. It would be fucking amazing.
You know what? If DC gets their head out of that, he could have been a director for the New Gods.
Oh my god, yes. So much. Or imagine if he got Etrigan.
Oh. Actually, that's a lot more up his alley, even more so than like Eternals.
Yeah, like I could see because he can have a dark like a dark twinge to him. Like wasn't he the one who did Hobo with a Shotgun?
I don't know if he did that one, but I know he did a Dusk Till Dawn the series, which was dark as hell.
Yeah. So yeah, him doing Etrigan the Demon with the same amount of money they spent on something like
he always has like these grand epic ideas, but it's always like he always has kind of less fun to it.
Because he does it himself. He's basically the world's most expensive home movie director. Which again, I have to give props to him, because given that he has around the same money and resources generally as the old school Channel Awesome producers, he does really good with his movies. And again, whenever he is given actual money to play with, like Alita Battle Angel, his visual style is more compelling than almost anyone's ever seen. So if he were given Eternals and Marvel's money and resources to play with, especially if he had, Kevin Feige and Marvel's roster of craftsmen to help him with things, that would be a match made in fucking heaven. Anyway, moving on.
I also I think you brought this up once when we had a discussion. Ronald Rodriguez directing a Power Rangers movie would also be fucking awesome.
Yes. Like literally give him the same money and resources that you gave the person who made the 2017 one. Best movie ever. Like literally just give him the same budget and the same like visual effects resources as the 2017 one had. That will be a Power Rangers movie for the ages.
All right.
And I don't even mind the 2017 one, mind you. It's just they also tried to make it a remake of Breakfast Club for some reason. And it was kind of weird.
I mean, it could have worked. It's just like it's. No. Some other time we'll have a discussion about this, but
It's short version is the problem with the 2017 Power Rangers movie was it was half a Power Rangers movie and half a decent remake of Breakfast Club.
well, okay.
And
Also,
for some reason, they decided they needed to do both instead of just doing one.
it also did that thing of like there were certain scenes that could have helped explain some things and give better context to some other things that were cut.
And of course, they really should have focused more on Rita's sorcery aspect, but
I'll be honest, that is kind of a thing.
that's just me being me. That's just me going, why isn't there more magic in everything I see, kind of thing. That's just me being me.
I'm also be honest with you. Kind of a problem too, but
Like I liked what they were going for, that she was the original Green Ranger, which also would have explained how she got the green power coin and stuff.
yeah.
But they really also should have focused a little bit more on the sorcery. I don't think Elizabeth Banks was a bad choice for her, though. I thought she did a really good job with what she was given.
Anyway, happy fucking time with us. Alright. This is just
Holding it back.
This is just unfamiliar faces that have come up short from Marvel in recent years, however. Secret Invasion, a series that sees Hollywood titan Samuel L. Jackson reprise the role of Nick Fury, reportedly had one of the worst premieres of all Marvel shows when it landed on Disney Plus last month. While the latest installment in the Thor movie series was met with mixed reviews, although it earned more than $760 million at the box office, making it 2022's eighth biggest theater release.
But the thing is, and this is the important bit, it made almost 100 million less than Thor Ragnarok. And generally speaking, especially given inflation, you want a sequel to do at least as much, if not a little more, than its predecessor. Especially when you consider that prior to Ragnarok, the first Thor made about 450 million, and the second Thor made, I believe, 644 million at the box office. So Ragnarok was obviously the right direction to go with, at least financially, because it made 860, I want to say, 860 million. Whereas again, Love and Thunder made about 100 million less, which is significant when you consider that a lot of people really, really enjoyed Ragnarok. I know there are people who hated it for reasons, and I know Brainstormer has his own issues with it, but speaking as someone who considers it the only good Thor movie so far, yeah, it was the right direction. They just needed someone to put Taika Waititi on a leash, because they basically did for Taika Waititi with Love and Thunder what they did with Patty Jenkins with Wonder Woman 2, or George Lucas in the prequel trilogy. I.e., a lot of what made the originals good was that while there was that incredibly creative person, there was also that person to tell them to, cool it and try to find a structure in it. Whereas in the sequels, they the studios thought that the crazy out there director was the secret sauce, and so they let them do whatever they wanted, and it backfired horribly. You need both the crazy out there creative person and the person to reel them back in and institute some kind of order and logic over things.
Okay,
I mean,
what's
not
wrong
to-
with you? That's kind of weird. If we both crazy creative.
I think between the two of us though, I function as the like order and logic producing one, because that is like 90% of my contribution to the creative process is just like, but how does this work mechanically though, or how does this function organically within the universe though?
Fair point, and also, to be fair, I do think it does flip flop depending on the projects we're working on. To be
Yeah,
fair.
it depends on what the idea we're working on is, and kind of what the focus of that IP is, because like I will always, and I'm not even ashamed of this, I will always ask the question, okay, but how can we stick magical weirdness into this somewhere? That will always be my MO, and I'm never ever going to apologize for.
Okay, Giant Turtle, hate is a strong word, but I didn't like it. It also was a bunch of stuff shoved together in an inferior way, like lumping Planet Hulk into it and making it a joke.
Okay, but I will defend their use of Planet Hulk at least a little bit, because of practical, financial, and in-universe company reasons. See, the thing about the Hulk and why he only shows up in the MCU in the crossovers, if he shows up at all, is because just like Sony owns part of the actual IP of Spider-Man now because of Marvel's bankruptcy in the 90s, Universal actually owns a significant portion of the IP of the Hulk, which means that Marvel Studios can never produce a solo Hulk movie without getting Universal's approval. However, they can have him show up in crossovers and in team up movies. So they threw the Hulk in there they threw the aspects of Planet Hulk into Ragnarok so that they could use some portion of the Ragnarok storyline, because otherwise the Planet Hulk storyline would have to sit there untouched forever.
Right. Giant Turtle, my biggest problem was, and he says fair enough about Hulk. The biggest problem was that it's a great example of the MCU not being able to take itself seriously or go too much. Yeah, okay, so that is kind of where I kind of have the issue with Thor Ragnarok. Is it just to me, it doesn't have that kind of weight of seriousness.
I mean,
It does try to be serious. It doesn't. I don't feel that weight.
it doesn't let it breathe very much.
Basically, yeah.
To
be fair,
when Asgard is being destroyed and Korg is giving color commentary as it literally blows up.
But to be fair, I will say this: I do think the Thor franchise, in terms of Marvel, was kind of flawed from the get-go. I will not deny that.
Yeah, because and that's why I'm more positive, I think, on Ragnarok than you guys, because to me, they went the wrong route with Thor from the get-go by doing the stupid ancient alien / Arthur C. Clarke's Law bullshit. Especially given that, Doctor Strange and other mystical and supernatural characters exist in the Marvel Universe, and if you ever want to address them, you need to undo that stupid Arthur C. Clarke nonsense. But I digress. Making Thor ancient aliens, Game of Thrones in space was really dumb, and having all of his movies be so Earth focused was also really dumb. So having them go kind of the Jack Kirby / who was the guy who did was it Roy Thomas who did the like really over the top colorful Thor in the 70s? I want to say.
I
Having them go, but point being, having them go kind of the Jack Kirby, or especially, given how successful Guardians was, having them go the more Guardians-y, colorful, over the top godliness with Thor makes sense. Granted, they should have done that from the get-go, and more to the point, Thor should have revolved more around, dealing with the various realms from Norse mythology, because, he's a freaking god and whatnot. But given that basically Thor 1 and 2 were bad, and the entire direction of the franchise needed an overhaul, I found Ragnarok extremely refreshing. And I could have liked Love and Thunder more than I did. In fact, I think when there's an episode where me and Brainstormer are reacting to the Love and Thunder trailer, and I think it was the one where we were ripping Gary a new asshole because he was being dumb about Multiverse of Madness. And both Brainstormer and I gave ideas about how Taika Waititi's approach to Thor could have worked with Love and Thunder. It just didn't work because, again, whereas Taika Waititi had co-writers in Ragnarok that were able to rein him in a little bit and give some order to his madness, Marvel assumed he was the secret sauce in Love and Thunder, and therefore he could do no wrong, and it became a parody of itself.
Well, that doesn't mean act like the entire concept and details are shown. Again, I agree with Dragon Turtle. Again, I think that's just kind of where we kind of hit the difference here.
Yeah, I was very happy to see Ragnarok because I abjectly hated the first two Thors, both from what they did to the wider MCU world building for a while, and also just as a portrayal of either Marvel's Thor or mythological Thor. So given that prior to Eternals, Thor 1 and Thor 2 were my least favorite MCU movies, I was very grateful for Ragnarok's sort of Kirby-esqueness, or, basically doing for Thor what the Guardians movies did for Guardians.
Okay,
that being said, I'm not going to lie, Love and Thunder's bad. It's not as bad, I think, as the first two Thors, but it's still a lot worse than Ragnarok. I still would say, if you put a gun to my head, Ragnarok is the only Thor movie that I think qualifies as good, because the first two were abjectly wrong from the conception phase, and Love and Thunder became a kind of snarky little bitchy parody of itself.
Okay, but if nothing else, I think we can at least all agree that there is kind of the issue of not taking itself serious enough.
Yeah, I again, there even Ragnarok had moments that I feel they could have let the seriousness sink in more.
Okay.
In particular, in the end, when Thor's home is literally going up in supernatural flames, and Korg is delivering color commentary.
Anyway. With Marvel notching its 32nd movie release with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 this year, which became a box office hit, questions have been raised about whether audiences are starting to experience superhero fatigue. Marvel Studios boss Kevin Feige isn't phased, however, and remains convinced that audiences will never tire of new superhero content.
See, I agree. I'm of two minds on this, because they will tire, Kevin, if you don't right the ship and focus more on quality again. However, I don't believe that superhero fatigue is a thing, because even now, at Marvel's lowest point and DC constantly fucking shitting the bed because they've been shitting the bed since 2013 and they haven't really stopped for long enough to say so. Even now, the two most successful movies of the summer, the summer of 2023, were Guardians 2 and um Spider-Verse, which are both what? Superhero movies. Granted, two of the several of the largest bombs of this year are probably also going to be superhero movies, namely The Flash and The Marvels. But even now, even at its lowest point, there is not superhero fatigue. The difference is that Spider-Verse and Guardians were at least good. And when comic book movies are good, they make money. They might not make as much money when every single one of them as they did when every single one of them was good, because now it's a crapshoot whether the superhero movie you watch is going to be good or whether it's going to be crap. And especially when the studios got out of their way to say, oh, by the way, none of this matters, looking at you, James Gunn, even really good movies like Black Adam wind up getting nerfed not because of the quality of the movie, because I genuinely think Black Adam was pretty freaking good, and oh my god, the Dr. Fate in that movie was awesome. But when you go out of your way to say, by the way, this interconnected universe that we're building has nothing to do with these, naturally people are going to ignore it, even if it's good. Although I will say, for those that want to crap on Black Adam, it made more than the Flash did, and more than Blue Beetle is probably going to. So
That being said, it's not a perfect movie.
no, it has its flaws. A lot of those flaws are incidental and kind of ignorable, but it definitely had its flaws in both the best and worst ways. It was like a summary of the entire genre for the last 10 years. But relative to everything but Suicide Squad 2, the first Wonder Woman,
Yeah.
the first Aquaman, the first Shazam, and Joker, it's definitely up there in terms of the movies DC has made recently.
Mhm.
And definitely would have been a good solid foundation to go off of, with the one exception that somebody needed to sit Dwayne Johnson down and tell him honestly that Black Adam is not a Superman villain, he is a Shazam villain, and the title fight should be between Black Adam and Shazam, and you just need to get over yourself, Dwayne.
I'd rather play Mongol.
Hmm?
I'd rather play Mongol.
I mean, again, I don't think we'll ever get Mongol in a Superman movie. It's taken this long for us to get anyone other than Lex Luthor, and we still haven't gotten Brainiac or Darkseid.
Or Parasite, or Banshee, or Livewire, or hell, Inner Gang.
Honestly, I don't think Inner Gang is really a Superman villain or a villain organization either. That is something probably that you'd want to Easter egg in multiple DC movies, and they were probably setting that up with Black Adam, but of course,
I actually did look this up. Yeah, Inner Gang technically is a thing Superman goes up against regularly because they use they use apocalyptic tech. And
Huh. This I did not know, but point being is they're probably pretty far down the list of Superman villains.
I would look at Silver Banshee, to be fair, or like Livewire.
I still, you'd probably have to go through Metallo and Brainiac before you get someone like that.
Yeah, to be fair, Silver Banshee has ties to mysticism, and Superman's more tied to like sci-fi stuff. So
Honestly, that would be a great excuse to have in the universe where Black Adam made the $1 billion it probably should have made. That would have been a really good excuse to have Dr. Fate and Superman crossover if Silver Banshee was involved. Because that was
Yeah.
one thing I really loved about Superman the Animated Series was how much respect that that Superman paid to Fate. And I mean to be fair, there's never really been, as far as I know, a time when Dr. Fate and Superman crossed over where he was disrespectful. Because even in Smallville, everyone rightfully regarded Dr. Fate like he was the biggest motherfucker in the room. Particularly Stargirl. Stargirl was my spirit animal in that episode. Like, holy shit, that's Dr. Fate.
so anyway, there's 80 years of the most interesting, emotional, groundbreaking stories that have been told in the Marvel comics, and it's a great privilege to be able to take what we have and adapt them to set in general. And that's it. Anything else to say? Tom?
No, me either.
Okay. Now the next one's loading, so.
And it's technically a follow-up to this one anyway, so we're staying roughly on the same topic.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This one is from Collider. Sorry, Bob Iger, you can't just blame TV for Marvel's movie flops. That's written by Lloyd Farley, published July 15, 2023. In these issues extend beyond the small screen.
I mean, yes, this is objectively true. I'm curious what Collider will say the issues are, because Collider is one of those like normie geek websites that very often is also wrong. So I'm curious how much refuting of Collider we're gonna have to do here. But yeah, I mean, the title isn't wrong. There are definitely more problems with Marvel than just too much of it.
Bob Iger, fresh from signing an extended contract that will see him the main CEO of the Walt Disney Company through to 2026, has a frank assessment of the current state of things. They dropped the ball. In a refreshing mea culpa from the head of an old entertainment conglomerate, Iger admitted that by increasing movie output and the number of television series, Disney had stretched their creative personnel too thin, taxing our people way beyond their time and their focus. But in assessing the cause of the poor box office returns for recent continued releases, Iger, for all intents and purposes, lays the blame at the feet of the Marvel television series, stating that they diluted focus and attention, and that is more than the cause than anything else.
Again,
Yeah.
it's a half truth. It's a half truth.
Again, it does have to do with, like, again, the writing of it, the issue too, like the quality mostly.
Yeah, and part of this, and I guess we should have mentioned this earlier. Part of the problem with Marvel right now is the direction, because, and again, I want to state for the record, it's not that the characters are too obscure. It's not that hashtag nobody cares. It's the actual like impact on the broader story that's the issue. Because what do we have coming up in terms of the movies? And the shows are a different question, but in terms of the movies, we have Thunderbolts, which are a group of characters that did not make a good first impression for the most part, which is more accurate, I think, to say than nobody cares about them. And also the idea of Thunderbolts is conceptually a little bit off, because I've explained on many occasions how you could do the Thunderbolts and make it interesting. You make them basically a combination between the Thunderbolts and the Dark Avengers. So you'd have a surrogate on the villain side for every single one of the heroes. Like, for example, you could have the Abomination standing in for the Hulk. You could have U.S. Agent standing in for Captain America. You could have Red Guardian standing in for Winter Soldier. You could have Mordo standing in for Strange. Agatha standing in for Wanda.
Actually, I mean, I did try to do I told Golan about this, but there was actually at one point I'm redoing it. I scrapped the original version, and I'm going to redo this version, another version of like a pre-rewrite of Thunderbolt. But I had a full lineup actually set up. I did take Zemo out, which I don't think he was in that initial. Also, no Bucky, because again, that makes no sense given his whole redemption storyline and stuff.
Yeah, he's not a villain anymore. That's why if I had my brothers, I would have U.S. Agent be the evil Cap, and I would have Red Guardian be the villainous or semi-villainous Winter Soldier.
Yeah, well, I had U.S. Agent, Red Guardian, Red Widow, which is actually a character in the Marvel Comics, which would have been Yelena instead of her being Black Widow or White Widow.
Would have also been useful to differentiate her from Natasha, which is important.
Then I got I had Abomination play A-Bomb, which is a version of the Hulk that I am actually borrowing from a TV show. If anyone remembers
the Agents of Smash, I remember. Yeah. I remember him mostly because there was a scene there was an episode where he wanted to study magic, so he goes to study with Doctor Strange, and he completely fucks it up.
Yeah, I mostly remember it was actually not a bad show. I liked it.
No, it was cute. I liked the sort of weird family dynamic that the various Hulks had.
Abomination, which obviously is supposed to be like an evil Hulk. And this was before Morbius. And I also started this project before Morbius came out, and before they did the whole weird thing of shuffling the Vulture to that universe.
Yeah, the multiversally displaced Vulture, which, oops, I guess we're never going to see him again.
Yeah, so I had the Vulture in there too, and I had Agatha. That was sorry, I'm trying. I don't have trouble keeping math. I'm not good at math or keeping track of things.
Right, but okay. The upshot is, I think in both of our versions of this, you basically have the Thunderbolts be a cross between the Thunderbolts and the Dark Avengers, so that you have like basically an evil Avengers team. Evil, quote unquote.
That was the original version of the Thunderbolts, like in the
90s. But point being, you could have done that conceptually, and it actually would be interesting. They did not, however, do that in their version of the Thunderbolts so far. From what we've seen of the Thunderbolts so far, you have characters that either were not well liked when they were shown, or that people don't have any opinions on whatsoever, and you basically over-focus on the street-level super soldier aspect of the MCU, rather than having at least one representative of every corner of the MCU, which would have been the smart thing to do if you're doing a team-up movie.
I also want to point it out just because I love what I did there. I do plan to do this with the same with my revisioning of my pitch of a Thunderbolt movie,
Hmm.
but it leads into a Winter Guard movie, which is like the Russian Avengers.
Yeah.
I'm,
Um.
I'm, I'm proud of
Yeah.
that. I'm proud.
Yeah. I know. I know. But back on the original point I was making. You have the Thunderbolts. That's one of the next big. That's one of the next big ones after the Marvels. You have Captain America: New World Order, starring Sam Wilson as Captain America, which is already controversial in and of itself. But then you throw in it's going to tie into Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which again was a pro BLM, pro open borders, strangely sympathetic to Antifa screed, wherein Sam became Captain America in the first place. And from what I hear, it also is going to tie in the leader, who is not a Captain America villain, and the events of, and possibly even the character of, She-Hulk. So you're taking the aspects of the two worst live action shows that Marvel has made yet, which is Falcon and the Winter Soldier and She-Hulk. You're scooshing them together. You're calling Sam Captain America, which is already unpopular and unpalatable. And you are calling it Captain America New World Order, which, knowing what I know about the sort of anti-establishment internet culture, that is going to get memed to hell and back. You might as well have called it Captain America the Klaus Schwabening or Captain America World Economic Forum for all the good that is going to do UPR wise.
Honestly, if nothing else, because I know they changed the Captain America versus the Serpent Society for the end of Captain America, the original Captain America trilogy, the Civil War.
Yeah, that would have been a good that would have been a good Captain America 4 if they still wanted to use it. But no, they throw in the leader, they throw in a subplot about various Hulks for some reason,
I mean, to be fair,
and
the leader, they kind of shuffled him off for some fucking reason because they were building him
well,
up.
again, the issue is Universal owns the Hulk in a similar way to how Sony owns Spider-Man, and unlike Sony, Universal will not play ball with the idea of doing a solo Hulk movie.
Anyway, we went so far off topic. I'm sorry. That's my bad.
Yeah. But my point that I was trying to get to is it's not just the quality issue. It's not just the writing issue. It's also that Marvel at large does not seem to know what direction they should be moving in, and they're building on a lot of things that the audience hates, and that is going to come back to bite them in the ass.
Moving forward.
Yep.
To a degree, it's fair estimate. One of the criticisms of Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, and to a lesser extent, the whole Attorney at Law, were the dodgy visual effects, noticeably well below the standard the MCU has set for itself in its previous fare. Additionally, the number of MCU projects per year has tripled on average from the MCU beginning with 2 films, Iron Man and the Incredible Hulk, and no TV series in 2008, to 3 films and 3 Disney Plus series in 2022. Combining the productions from other studios, but the effects industry is dealing with an unprecedented high in the number of costumes thrusted upon overworked, stressed out visual effects. Yeah, that's it. I got nothing to say to that, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
However, for Iger to place the blame solely on television's taxation on visual effects for the poor box office of the MCU is short-sighted at best. The truth is that the reasons for Marvel's movie failures of late go above and beyond the small screen exposed troubling issues that the MCU would be wise to address sooner than later. In the MCU, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Okay? With a few exceptions, if you look at the movie posters for MCU films as a whole, there's a sameness to them. The main character front and center walking forward, or particularly if you look at posters of Thor Ragnarok, Black Panther, and Avengers Infinity War, side by side, almost identical in appearance. The
No.
Okay, I want to read more of this just because.
Yeah, but I'm the face of that. That is one of the stupidest criticisms you could possibly level at the MCU.
To be fair, Marvel posters aren't that great. Let's be honest.
No, but to highlight them in particular instead of any of the more meaningful criticisms about the MCU is just stupid.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's technically valid. I just don't see the point in it being mentioned here.
I don't know where this guy is going because, like,
Okay.
I agree that the, Bob Iger approach of we're overtaxing things is only a small part of the problem, but the sameness or the blandness is itself only a small part of the problem. Like,
Okay,
like it's an even smaller part of the problem, I would say. If it even is a thing at all, because, and I've said this before and I will say it again, the MCU movies only look the same if you deliberately go out of your way to ignore the things that make them unique and different from each other.
Okay. That sameness extends beyond the promotional material to the films themselves. Introduce the hero, insert villains, some funny bits, wrap up film with an epic battle, repeat some villain and team up here and there. Okay.
You're just describing an ordinary plot structure, my dude. That's not something unique or flawed about the MCU in particular. Like, that's just a plot structure.
Hold on. Next sentence. In fairness, it's a broad generalization given how the MCU has delivered some outstanding moments. Anyone who says they definitely knew Thanos would come out on top at the end of Infinity War had pants on fire. Oh, fuck off.
Everyone knew he had to win at the end of Infinity War because everyone who cared to know knew about how the comics ended.
Yeah, that, and also it was technically a part one.
Yeah. Originally they were going to have the same title, and more to the point, again, in order for anything resembling something, anything resembling something that could be meaningfully based on the comics to happen, Thanos has to win in the first part of the Infinity Saga because the snap has to happen. I guarantee you that if the snap had not happened, everyone would have been rioting. Even people whose knowledge of the comics comes from people like Comics Explained or the New Rock Stars or Nerd Doc or something like that would be pissed off if the snap hadn't happened. So if you're telling me that you, person who works for Collider, wasn't calling the snap would happen at the end of Infinity War, then you are the odd one out, my friend. Thanos snapping with the Infinity Gauntlet is the most iconic thing about Thanos. Period.
Okay, but when the audience has been trained on what to expect, it becomes that much more difficult to set the films apart from one another.
No, no, dude.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Like, to be a little crude here, but that's such an asshole, pretentious way of saying it.
Yeah, it is. It's also facile and wrong. Like, again, I've said it before and I will say it again. All the people who claim, oh, every single Marvel movie is the same, Herder.
You're not actually paying attention to the movie. Then.
Yeah, they don't actually pay attention to any of the meaningful differences between any of the Marvel movies.
Yeah, I don't.
Like that, they're like especially ever since like 2014, the Marvel movies have gone out of their way to purposely affix subgenres to their comic book movies. Like Captain America: The Winter Soldier was a political thriller, or rather an espionage thriller. Ant-Man was a heist movie. Guardians was a space opera mixed with a heist movie. According to Scott Derrickson, he wanted Doctor Strange to be a mind trip action film along the lines of The Matrix. He didn't quite succeed at that, but digression. Winter Soldier was a war movie / a political thriller.
You already said Winter Soldier.
That's why I changed the designation that I gave to Winter Soldier. I said Winter Soldier was a spy thriller. Civil War was a political thriller.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did catch that, and I put a more precise spin on it. Black Panther was very, very specifically an Afrocentric and like a blaxploitation movie. The first two Spider-Man movies in the Tom Holland trilogy were supposed to be like the MCU's answer to a John Hughes movie. Multiverse of Madness is a Lovecraftian horror comedy, and no, it's not a multiverse movie. It's a Lovecraftian horror comedy first, a multiverse movie second.
Sorry, that Turtle espionage thriller, isn't that Cloak and Dagger? I haven't seen the show. I haven't seen that.
Cloak and Dagger, the show, one, aren't canon to the MCU. Two, no, they're not. They're called Cloak and Dagger because of the way their powers work. It's not supposed to be a description of the characters. Cloak is called Cloak because his cloak is a portal to the dimension that holds the Dark Force. And Dagger is called Dagger because she can make...
Sorry. Okay, Cloak and Dagger, the genre...
No. Cloak and Dagger, the genre convention, is something that you is mostly something that occurs in pulp detective stories. So like Dick Tracy, Casablanca, those sorts of movies.
I need to watch that.
It's you haven't seen Casablanca yet?
I'm 23.
Yes, and I'm 27, going to be 28 in 2 days.
Keep in
And
mind,
Casablanca was released 70 or 80 years ago.
Dalton?
It's not
Dalton?
age is not a defense here.
No. Okay, one, keep in mind my generation. Keep in mind my life story that I have told you multiple times.
Yes, I know. You were busy going through the Punisher's backstory. Yes, I know, but still, like age is not a defense here.
Generation isn't deeply into those old movies. So
it's not even a generational thing. It's a level of like geek education thing. Like not seeing Casablanca at least once isn't quite grounds for losing your geek card, but it's close.
Again, I don't know where to find it. Watch it.
That I would have to Google for you because I don't know if it's on a streaming service or something like that.
Anyway,
if you have terrestrial TV, it's probably available on Turner Classic Movies.
Anyway, where were we?
The stupid all the Marvel movies are the same lol criticism.
Right, you were listing subgenres of Marvel movies, but
yeah, like my point is that even back in 2014-ish, Marvel made a point to add subgenres to their comic book movies. So even if this even if you were just talking about like Phase 4 and 5, you'd be wrong because Marvel has preempted this criticism 5 ways from Sunday. The one criticism that is actually rooted in something is the villain criticism, and even that's been waning for a while between Loki, Agatha, Gore the God Butcher, and Thanos. That just about tears the villain criticism down pretty much.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Okay. This leads directly to the next issue: expectations. The Infinity Saga of the MCU taught moviegoers that the films work together to build up towards a big thing, a la Avengers Endgame. The multiverse saga that the MCU is in now is following that exact same trajectory, with a bunch of movies setting up Kang up as the new Thanos that will eventually end with the big event film Avengers Secret Wars in 2027. I thought it was Kang Dynasty, not Secret Wars.
Kang Dynasty is the first one. Secret Wars is the second one.
But Secret Wars is a completely different thing, to my knowledge. Like, it's a different story.
No, it's a sequel in the same way that Infinity War and Endgame were related to each other.
No, but the storyline, Secret Wars.
Kang creates Battleworld at the end of Kang Dynasty.
So they're nixing the Beyonders, motherfuckers.
Or the Grandmaster. He also sometimes creates Battleworld.
Whatever.
Remember, there are two different Secret Wars storylines. The older one, I believe, involves the Grandmaster and the Collector playing chess with superheroes, basically. Anyway, moving along.
That could be the one I saw from the 90s. The 90s Spider-Man show with Beyonder and Madam Web. So that probably is one.
I know Madam Web is a completely different character in the comics, but this is one of the few times that I will genuinely say this with all sincerity. The TV show did it better. Madam Web being a cosmic entity that sort of fills the role of being the cosmic totem for the Spider-Man mythos, and also being the understudy to the Beyonder, is genius, and I love her.
All right, but let me redo this just because I stopped for that. All right, this leads directly to the next issue: expectations. The Infinity Saga of the MCU taught moviegoers that films work together to build up toward the big finish, a la Avengers Endgame. The multiverse saga that the MCU is in now is following the exact same trajectory, with a bunch of movies setting up Kang up as the new Thanos that will eventually end with the big event film Avengers Secret Wars in 2027. Unless you're truly invested in the entire storyline, why waste your time and money on the precursor film when you see the spectacle of all the heroes on screen at the same time fighting a common enemy? This becomes more clear when you consider that the original lineup of the MCU is either dead, RIP Iron Man and Black Widow, or is otherwise no longer present, thanks Steve Rogers, barring some weird multiversal resurrection. So I got a few things to say, Dom, but I'll save mine until after you're done with your thing.
Okay, here's the thing. If you, writer of this article, weren't so pig-headed as to blindly believe every criticism that has ever been leveled at the MCU, you would realize that you're complaining about the exact opposite of the problem, because the biggest problem with Phase 4 and 5 so far is that they don't all trend towards one giant thing. They don't all tie into Kang or set up Kang or the multiverse. The biggest problem with a lot of Phase 4 and 5, Black Widow, Eternals, Shang-Chi, Echo, She-Hulk, the list goes on. The majority of the movies that the MCU has released have bumfuck nothing to do with the multiverse saga. And in many ways, I think that is what is turning people off. That and the writing / the fact that they don't make the characters enjoyable or likable or interesting. But I think that's a large part of the problem, because the two biggest movies in the entire MCU so far, with regards to Phase 4 and 5, have been Multiverse of Madness and No Way Home, both of which were heavily focused on multiverse, at least nominally. Again, the good thing about Multiverse of Madness was it was a Lovecraftian horror comedy first that focused on Doctor Strange and the Mystic Marvel side of the universe, more so than it focused on the multiverse. But at least nominally, it had multiversal elements. So, yeah. And the only reason why Ant-Man 3 didn't do well, or as well as the other two, is one, Ant-Man has always kind of been an also-ran in the MCU, so why they decided to make him the establishing point for the new big bad, I will never know. But also because of the three, even though I think storyline-wise it might be the most interesting of the Ant-Mans, the quality and execution were the most shite in Ant-Man 3.
May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the first thing I was going to bring up, which I think you did kind of cover, but I'll just kind of put my own 2 cents into it. One is kind of what we've been repeating ad nauseum, like within the podcast, is like, again, it's the kind of the quality thing of like, it has kind of lacked in quality lately. In terms of like writing for like characters, the plots,
consistency, world building, yada. And okay, I don't want to step on your toes, but there's one other thing I should have mentioned.
Okay.
Prior to the end of Phase 3, Kevin Feige and Marvel's production team insisted that the directors and writers they hired to make the movies read the source material, read the comics, and used the comics as a basis. Ever since Phase 4 started, they've apparently done a complete 180 on that because of ideological bullshit reasons of people who care about the world building and lore are idiots, so let's subvert them and treat them like children, yada yada yada.
I'll read that in a second, John. Hold on a second. The second thing I was going to say was, it's something I brought up many times. And kind of to give it a final point that other times I've discussed, it's the over reliance on the interconnectivity in a way that it doesn't work. And what I mean by that is throughout Phase 4, you really had to like see all these other things get like things. And don't get me wrong, I'm fine with interconnectivity. The issue is it's not good interconnectivity. Because it really feels like you're missing a lot if you don't see this one thing, when instead it should be seeing this one thing helps add context to something, but they're both can be separate things themselves. That makes sense. Like
that's why I hated a lot of the criticism of Multiverse of Madness, because everyone and their mother saw Multiverse of Madness, zeroed in on they saw Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, the title, and they focused on multiverse entirely, to the exclusion of the Doctor Strange part or the of Madness part, which, if you were paying attention to either of them, would have or the fact that Sam Raimi was involved, would have clued you in on the fact that it was going to focus more on the Lovecraftian side of the multiverse. Now, granted, there's a conceptual problem with this that is not the fan base's fault for making that assumption, which is, for some reason, the MCU and Kevin Feige insisted on calling the multi-dimensional part of the Marvel universe the mystical and supernatural part of the Marvel Universe, the multiverse, instead of something else, which does create that level of confusion because the multiverse that Doctor Strange deals with, in air quotes, is not the world of parallel universes and alternate timelines, or the what if style alternate storylines. It's the world of supernatural entities, conceptual beings, conceptual planes of existence, nether worlds, different dimensions, and etc. Which the best way to conceptualize this is the difference between a scientific multiverse and a magical multiverse. Again, using those terms in air quotes, is the magical multiverse is like an onion. It's one consistent mass with multiple layers in it. Whereas the scientific multiverse is a bag full of separate onions, if that makes any sense. I.e., the multiple dimensions of a given universe are contained to that given universe. I.e., every universe has 4 scientific spatial dimensions and dozens upon dozens upon dozens of different conceptual planes of existence, netherworlds, and alternate and like cosmic / supernatural planes of existence.
Actually, I did have one last thing before we move on. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but it's just like one thing related to this, and then moving on. Okay, so with the expectations thing, because I was just reminded of this, right? And I've actually say 2 things. Which the first thing, it kind of does relate to what I was bringing up with like the interconnectivity thing. But the issue of like the build up that they constantly do. Hello, Selga, good to see you. This is something about Bob Iger, but it technically isn't. It's more talking about the MCU and what problems it has. Like the writer doesn't like the MCU apparently. Either way,
it's the usual. The MCU was weird, and I don't understand why it's popular, herder. Right. But also tying into something Bob Iger said in an interview recently.
Yeah, but what I was saying with like equity. So the first thing obviously is coming back to like the interconnectivity thing. It's the constant build-up without like a release of like a payoff to some of the build-up.
All build-up, always shifting goalposts, never actually paying off anything.
I mean, the writers aren't good for the MCU. Right? Yeah, we already covered that. So, the second thing I was going to do was, okay, remember WandaVision, all those videos coming out about like the fan theories and stuff, and like these like high expectations they had, like Mephisto.
Every single one of the fan theories was better than the actual conclusion of the show.
Yeah.
Every single one.
So what I was going to say, what I'm trying to say is that more or less, it's a weird, I don't think it's the intention of the writers or the creators, but it always seems like they're intentionally trying to not outmaneuver, but whenever the fans come up with these ideas and stuff, where like it does seem logical conclusion to draw.
They have to do the opposite because aren't we so clever? Aren't we so subversive? Aren't we so much intellectually superior to the audience?
Okay, thank you. I don't think I was going to be able to put that in the right words, but yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that is kind of fun. So like it's the expectations are not unfounded. The issue is they never pay off those expectations. Or haven't lately. I'm not saying they haven't before. They certainly have.
Yeah, but, or they go out of their way to do the opposite of the expectations for basically no other reason than they don't have respect for in-universe logic, and they resent the fact that the audience thinks they should.
Okay.
Like for example, you brought up WandaVision a second ago.
Sorry.
The infamous at this point Ralph Bohner fiasco. The problem with that is not just that every single fan theory was objectively better in a myriad of ways than the tee-hee, let's piss off the audience joke. But that all of the fan theories were rooted in universe logic. They weren't even that fanficky, and that's the thing. Yes, audiences can be fanficky. Audiences can get caught up in their own little worlds and be narcissistic and fail to take into account in-universe logic. But for every one time that happens, there are 5 or 6 times where the audience does do the in-universe legwork to justify why that thing makes sense. And then the writers resent the idea that they should be compelled to follow in-universe logic. It's similar to, and probably related to, if I'm being entirely honest, the idea in modern political discourse that expecting things to follow a kind of straightforward chain of causality or operating in anything resembling a transactional manner is entitlement. I.e., how dare you, customer, assume that you giving me your money entitles you to the thing you're paying for? Or how dare you assume that by being nice to a person you should at least implicitly be able to expect nice treatment in return, etc., etc. You're entitled if you think that things should be straightforward or logically causal. It's very much that same mentality of, oh, the fans actually expect us to operate in this universe and take it somewhat seriously, as though the in-universe logic matters more than our thematic gobbledygook? How dare they? And I'm calling back to WandaVision again, but WandaVision is a really, really good example for this. The initial plan, when WandaVision was in the conceptual stages, was apparently to have Doctor Strange come in to Westview and help Wanda through her grief, through her pain. But instead of doing that, which would have made sense in universe, because Doctor Strange is both a powerful sorcerer who deals with sorcery-based problems, and also someone with a neurological and psychological background. So if there was any person on Marvel's planet Earth that would have been qualified to help a grieving, very powerful witch who was using reality-bending magic to manifest her psychological breakdown, it would have been the ex-neurosurgeon, the ex-neuroscientist turned sorcerer. But instead of that, the writers and their abstract morality got ahead of themselves and go, oh, even though that makes perfect sense internally, based both on the characters' internal lives, but also on the in-universe logic, we can't do that because ideologically speaking, that would imply a male figure saving a female figure, irrespective of the fact that in real-world psychology, again, calling back to the it would make sense in universe point, even in real-world psychology, there's this thing called interventions, wherein friends of a given person and also psychological professionals get together to help them through a difficult time, whether it be a drug addiction, whether it be some other kind of addiction, whether it be psychological grief. So not only does it work on a character-to-character point of view of Doctor Strange helping Wanda, but it also works as a simulacra for real-world logic that translates well into the same universe on human terms. But no, they didn't, because we can't have the person who's the most psychologically well-versed character in the Marvel Universe, who also happens to be an expert on magic, deal with someone going through a magically empowered psychological piece of psychological trauma in interventions standpoint. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, it's just I was noticing that a lot of people like Ahsoka and was saying a lot of things and missed. I'm sorry, Ahsoka. Um, okay, I'm just going to cover the more recent ones just because of the in context of this.
Mhm.
Uh, uh, like, where was the rest of the Avengers for this character? Yes, he transformed his friend. The Avengers were like family.
To be fair, I did see some people. I did see some people say this when I pointed this out, and they were confused because we don't actually see Wanda and Strange share screen time prior or in uh Infinity War or Endgame. To that, I would respond: he went, he or one of his sorceress underlings went and got her in the Endgame fight, the portal fight. Um, but also, just because they haven't shared direct screen time doesn't mean that it doesn't make sense that they would know each other because they're both, you know, magic adjacent characters. And also, even outside of the Avengers hierarchy, because and I will point this out for anyone who doesn't know, Doctor Strange in the comics is not an Avenger. He helps the Avengers from time to time in the same way that Gandalf helps the Fellowship in Lord of the Rings, but he's not technically a member of them or subservient to their authority.
Um,
By which I mean the magical side of the Marvel universe kind of forms its own community, and in such a community, everyone knows and respects the Sorcerer Supreme, especially characters who are also Avengers adjacent, like Wanda.
all right, I'm going to say you need to go and we'll probably watch this later. Yeah, see you, man.
Yep, no problem.
All right, moving on.
Yep.
AMCU has too many new kids on the block. Um,
This also wouldn't be a problem if they were likable or made sense as characters.
yeah, like I feel like that's a double-edged sword.
See, the thing is, the character who was the strongest standout in WandaVision was was Agatha. So
Sorry, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Okay, I hate to mention this guy. Just I mostly think he coughs too much, and uh, his theories can be a little far-fetched at times. Matt Pat. Although it's kind of a similar thing with like Grace Randolph. It's just I can't find him the way he talks a bit annoying.
Who is this guy?
Game theory.
Oh, Matt Pat. I thought you said Mad Cap for some reason. I was like, wait, why would Mad Cap be an expensive character to portray in the Marvel universe?
No. Yeah, Matt Pat. He also has another channel like Film Theory. I remember people. He actually made a theory that Arcana Jones, who was like a member of the Squadron Supreme, was in that show as well, like WandaVision.
Mm-hmm. The blonde, right? Dottie, I think was her
I
name in the Westview Fantasy.
I'm be honest, I haven't really watched WandaVision since it came out, so I barely watched it when it was out. So.
Like I keep saying whenever this comes up, the first 5 episodes of WandaVision were actually pretty decent as far as setup episodes go. But in retrospect, there is literally only one episode that needs to be watched, and that's episode 8. Not 9, but episode 8. The one where Agatha takes Wanda to witch school and then basically acts as her Ghost of Christmas Past in the like memory regression department.
Um, uh, Sorry. Wanda being as strong as she is, literally in the comics, that people become insane with her. She goes crazy again. There's a whole team of magic users that intervene. She goes crazy again. Um, and I'll get to those Ironheart comments when we get into the paragraph here. So,
Yeah. But in relation to what you said about Wanda there, Ahsoka though, I don't think it's controversial of me to say or make this parallel, but Wanda is to the Marvel multiverse what the Spectre is to the DC universe, in the sense that anytime the writers need, and then this character went nuts and rewrote the entirety of reality, they use that character. Whenever the Marvel writers need that to happen, it's always Wanda gets PMS, and then, or and whenever the DC writers need it, it's always the Spectre went too long without a host, and then, yeah, that they're it's the universal problem of mentally unstable people with the power to warp the fabric of reality around them.
well, with the legacy MCU characters now far and few between. Oh no, few and far between. The future of the MCU lies with characters the public doesn't know to the same degree over Captain America or Spider-Man.
Again, no, I brought this up earlier. It must be said that prior to 2008, Iron Man and Captain America were extremely obscure characters, and the fact that they were obscure did not impede people's ability to get on board with them at all, because the MCU used to be really good at making people like obscure characters, and teaching the normies that maybe they were wrong for not giving these characters a chance when they were just in the comics. And again, I would point out the character that was most liked and and had the most pop culture impact on people, probably in all of Phase 4, but especially in WandaVision, is Agatha Harkness. And I mean, they gave her her own Disney villain song, for fuck's sake. And it became and it was on the high, what the fuck am I trying to say? The top 10 list of iTunes for like a month after that.
Anyway, yes, I mentioned America were heavily obscure outside of Spider-Man and Batman and Superman. There wasn't really any other mainstream superheroes.
No, there were a couple. DC had Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, Flash, and Marvel always had Fantastic Four, Hulk, Spider-Man, X-Men.
So it says these are three known superheroes to the general population at large before 2008.
No, but again, even then, DC has their, probably you could extend it out to the entire main 7 of the Justice League. DC has their main 7, and Marvel has 5 that everyone knew. Spider-Man, X-Men, Hulk, Spider-Man, X-Men, Hulk, Fantastic Four. Basically all the ones they sold during the bankruptcy, and that's why they sold them, was those were the biggest ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, lest we forget that the 90s animated series did happen, both for Spider-Man and for X-Men and Fantastic Four.
Mm-hmm. Even casual comic book fans were unlikely to know who Echo was prior to Hawkeye, and now without a significant amount of screen time in that series, Echo's got her own Disney Plus series on deck.
It doesn't matter. the MCU has been working with obscure characters since minute one because all their mainstream heroes were sold off during the bankruptcy crisis to get Marvel's ass out of the fire. It's not the obscureness of the character that is the important thing. It's whether you can convince the Joe Blow normies that they were wrong not to engage with the obscure character when the character was just in the comics. Because that is the magic of the comic to movie transfer. If you do it right, you can take the most obscure comic book character, put them in a really, really badass movie, and convince the normies that they were wrong for not knowing who that character was. Look at V for Vendetta. Look at Hellboy, for fuck's sake. And this is long before the MCU was even a thing.
Blade.
Blade. Spawn. Although the Spawn movie wasn't that great, but people still fucking remember it.
Animated show was amazing, though.
Well, yeah, but I'm trying to think of like movies and stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I want to say The Crow, possibly, but
yeah, no, The Crow's definitely in the obscure vein. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, definitely in the obscure vein. Watchmen was very much in the obscure vein outside of comic book fans.
For the record, okay, so yes, and even the normies hate these shows. When the normies hated She-Hulk, when the normies hated Hell, a huge amount of stuff was hated by the normies in Phase 4.
And that's the thing. And not only are they failing to get the normies, they're changing characters that even the fans liked. For example, She-Hulk in the comics is a very bubbly, very self-actualized character. She enjoys being a 6'7" jade goddess and so on. She considers her cousin Bruce giving her a blood transfusion to be the best thing that ever happened to her, right? Yeah. Not so for TV show She-Hulk. She's every bit the bitter middle-aged gender studies 101 talking point spouting middle manager, basically, that her writers turned her into.
It doesn't help if they changed her backstory and how she got her powers.
Yeah, no, her original backstory was badass as fuck.
Yeah, even before she became a superhero, she was fighting a good fight as a lawyer.
Yeah, she was one of the few lawyers that could give Matt Murdock a run for his money organically in the comics.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know if we were ever going to talk about that. Because it's also brings up. Let's also remember they changed Ms. Marvel in the comics to be a mutant now, and everyone hates her now, even her old fans.
Yeah, and let's not even get into the whole changing her powers and backstory thing in the MCU too, and how now even the people who liked Kamala Khan in the comics don't like her in the MCU now. So again, that doesn't bode well for Marvels at all.
Well, in the comics, originally she was an Inhuman, but in the show, they gave her powers that are connected to Jinn, which I think you and I both agree made a lot more sense and worked a lot better for the character.
And then they backpedaled again, and they tried to make her a mutant Jinn, which, given that she was the first Jinn we ever came into contact with, is even more stupid.
Yeah, and now they're retroactively doing it in the comics. And Marvel has been
sometimes trying to model the comic off the movies can work, and other times it ruins things. Like I'm radical in this point, but I liked the biological web shooters for Spider-Man. I thought it makes a lot of sense, and it actually allows his powers to resemble a spider in more ways than just superficial.
Fair enough.
But
I could take it either or. I like both for different reasons, but I see your point.
I mostly just pointed it out because I know there are a lot of Spider-Man fans who viscerally hate the biological web shooters for basically no reason that I can adequately explain. And I've always kind of liked them.
I think, like, to be fair, the biological web shooters were what I saw first whenever first everything I saw Spider-Man.
Well, yeah, because I remember being like 5 when the Tobey Maguire movies first came out. So by the time you saw them, they probably already were out for quite a while. By the time you saw them,
Yeah, I think it was like 6 or 7 when Spider-Man 3 came out.
yeah. So yeah, because of the like 4-year gap between us, I think I was like 13-ish, maybe.
So then I saw it in other media when you had the regular web shooters, like the makeshift one. And I'm like I said, I could take either or. I think I prefer the built web shooters, like mechanical ones, just because I think it adds it adds more drama to the fact that he might run out of webs at some point, like in a fight or something.
Well, but that's a problem with how they handled the biologic web shooters, because here's the thing about biology. It also can run out. Like, imagine if they had given him something similar to the Flash's weakness, where he has to like metabolize nutrients in order to refuel his powers every so often. Because his speed makes him burn through things. If they had done something similar to that with the biological web shooters, where he could run out of webbing and he had to like eat or sleep or rest or something in order to give his body time to make more webbing, I think that would have worked better.
Fair enough. Also, I'll be honest. I think I just love the design of like mechanical web shooters, like how different interpretations like draw them or conceptualize them.
This is the problem I have with the BioWeb or the tech web shooters. In terms of his actual power set, nothing about him screams spider. Like, he has super strength, super agility, and an intuitive sense, which is the spider sense.
Well, okay, hold on, you're forgetting about the adhesiveness.
Okay, fair, I suppose, but point being, nothing excessively screams spider about his power set. By making his web shooters a mutation, it makes the connection between his powers and spiders irrevocable. Whereas having his web shooters be technological in nature means that he's drawing the connection between him and the animal that gave him his powers out of his own choice when he didn't have to. And that, to me, has never made much sense.
Anyway, moving on.
Yeah, moving on.
Ironheart is in a virtually identical situation. The argument would be that no one knew who the Guardians of the Galaxy were prior to their first film, but back then obscure characters were a rarity rather than the norm. And the public had an entire film with which fell in love with them. Characters like Ironheart and Echo seem more like quick introductions to give more output. And that output was one account puts the amount of time to catch up every single MCU film and TV series at 6,787 minutes. So unless you have watched every single minute of every single MCU project, a film like the upcoming MCU release, The Marvels, has main characters that may be entirely new to
Again, it's less that they're new and more that they are not likable, or that people actually, in the case of Carol Danvers, have an antipathy towards her. I.e., they don't like that. That's the biggest problem, because something like Thunderbolts could work, or something like Captain America 4 could work if they took the time to set up the characters and make the characters likable and make the audience want to engage with them. But because the writers go out of their way to spite the fan base and often the in-universe logical characterization on purpose, the characters are both unknown and unlikable, as opposed to just being unknown but likable, which is the magic formula, I think, for doing obscure characters, right? Because what you really want to do if you're working with obscure characters is do such a good job with making the character likable that the normies who didn't give the character a chance in the original format in the comics feel ashamed for not seeing what made the character special. That's what you want to do. And even now it can be done. Like when Black Adam came out, I was so happy as a Doctor Fate fan to see so many people who I constantly had to explain why I love Doctor Fate the most out of any character in the DC universe to people. And then when people saw him in Black Adam, it finally clicked, and everyone, even people who didn't like Black Adam the movie, all said Doctor Fate was the standout. Doctor Fate was the MVP. I would watch a Doctor Fate movie, yada yada yada. And I was like, yes, see, this is what you were missing. This is why I told you he was the most awesome character in the DC universe. Damn it.
Mhm. The MCU too hard on rekindle its magic, not in the least. And Galaxy 1 3, the biggest success in what has been a low point in the MCU, proved that a good story, especially straightforward, different white hat / black hat one that isn't mired in multiverse gobbledygook, still has the power to draw people. Okay, so a lot of things there. First off, multiverse stories aren't bad. Again, it's just a quality thing. Like
I do think it was a mistake to do multiverse before you did Supernatural, though. I.e., before they and here's the thing. I don't think I think I'm right here, especially because apparently back before James Gunn got fired, the original plan was going to be setting up Eternity and setting up Galactus for Phase 4. But after James Gunn got fired and most of his ideas for the cosmic side of the MCU got nerfed because he got fired, um, they decided they needed to go a completely different route, and they decided to go multiverse, which I think was a mistake. I think you could have still done the supernatural side of the universe before, because here's the thing: each universe can have its own supernatural dimensions. It's like what I was saying before with the difference between a magical multiverse in air quotes and a scientific multiverse, not in air quotes, is the magical multiverse deals with dimensions that exist in a given universe that are conceptual or cosmic or divine or supernatural, whereas a scientific multiverse is the parallel universes and alternate timelines in separate universes.
um,
And and just in terms of scaling and world building, I think it would have made more sense to build up the supernatural things contained within one universe before branching off into other universes.
fair enough. I mean, they should have done supernatural stuff and then cosmic and then interdimensional. With Ahsoka. When I say this, they screwed up with the Kang Dynasty.
Eh, And here's the other thing. You could have even done Kang without mentioning the multiverse if you just did time travel instead of multiverse.
To be fair, it
Which
depends which version of time travel we're also trying to think of here, because there are a couple different versions in terms of fiction. Which one version of time travel does tend to involve multiverse theory.
yes, and that's probably the stupidest kind of time travel. But if you actually go based on like the, logic rewriting or the closed loop style time travel, it would have worked better. It also would have been an organic outgrowth from Endgame because they established the start of time travel in that movie. So
Yeah.
Kang could have been the timeline villain. Like instead of the Infinity Saga, it could have been the Time Saga. And you even could have, because eternity is the embodiment of the universe's timeline, you could have even tied in the eternity elements that they were already planning on setting up and call it the Eternity Saga. And it still would have featured Doctor Strange as a main character because Doctor Strange is one of the first people in continuity of the comics to interact with Eternity, and he's also one of the few characters who actually can interact with Eternity because, Eternity is a cosmic entity and shit.
Mhm. Um, Also, and this is just a way I think you also could have done multiverse madness better with keeping the multiverse and the madness. Is literally have the main villain be the Cancerverse. If anyone knows that.
Shimogorath.
Yeah. Oh, apparently there is somewhat of a legal dispute on whether they can use that. Oh no, wait, no, it wasn't Shimogorath. It was Gargantos, I think.
Here's the thing with the whole Gargantos thing with well, they were obviously trying to do Shimogorath. I don't mind that they changed his name in Multiverse of Madness because they turned him into a mostly mindless monster. And that's wrong to do with Shimogorath. Shimogorath should honestly be the capstone to the trilogy. He should be the biggest of the big bads. Because here's the thing with Doctor Strange, and this is the thing that people don't understand. Because everyone and their mother who has like normie levels of understanding with regard to Doctor Strange think that Mordo is Doctor Strange's nemesis. They think that Mordo is his Lex Luthor. But that's not the case. Mordo is Doctor is basically a henchman for Dormammu. If you want to plug it back into the DC metaphor I just made, if Doctor Strange is Batman, or rather, if Doctor Strange is a surrogate for Superman in this metaphor, then Dormammu is his Lex Luthor, and Mordo is his Marcy Graves. Or if he's Batman, then Dormammu is Doctor Strange's Joker, and Mordo is his Harley Quinn. Whereas Shimogorath in this metaphor would be his dark side. That's the thing. So I don't mind them changing Shimogorath's name to Gargantos, especially because Gargantos is also a very similar creature to Shimogorath, and he does have Atlantean connection, so it works. Or I guess in this case it would be Talocan connections. But the upshot is by changing the name of Shuma by changing his name in Multiverse of Madness, you leave the option open that the actual Shimogorath can show up later and be the dark side to Doctor Strange's Superman, if you like. He can
Uh,
be the big bad, the capstone to the trilogy, as he should be.
all right, moving on. Well, also, I mean, you can have, yeah, I get it. like the quality thing of like that. Yeah, you just need a good story, good characters, and writing that draws people in. The issue is that I think a lot of the MCU projects recently have kind of forgotten that
Mm-hmm.
and are more just focused on the spectacle than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Common Sense actually went out over dollar signs, reducing the MCU's output of both movie and TV stands to restore the quality associated with the franchise, not only with visual effects, but the stories and characters as well. If they stop making a Disney Plus show, it's much watch in order to understand what's happening in the films, and vice versa. They simplify what is already an overly complex narrative. Okay, again, fuck off. Not that overly complex.
It's just large. It's not even that complicated. It's actually very simple, all things considered. There just happen to be a lot of moving parts. But it's ultimately very straightforward.
Um, if they insist on introducing relatively unknown characters, then give them the time and devotion so fans can fall in love with them too, as they succeeded in doing with Yelena Belova and Black Widow.
No, they didn't.
Eh,
That was not a success. No one even remembers Yelena as a thing half the time.
I mean, I do, but
And well, no, but I mean, based solely on her performance in that movie.
yeah, fair enough.
You know, because you did the right thing and did research, but based solely on her compellingness or lack thereof in the movie, when you say Black Widow, no one, and I mean no one, thinks of Yelena. They all still think of Natasha.
Um,
And we
that
will
is,
see that when she's in Thunderbolts and no one shows up for Thunderbolts.
yeah, again, like I don't mind that Yelena is the successor to Natasha because it makes sense with like the character and stuff. But don't have her be Black Widow. Like there are actually different versions of Widow.
That, and also make her a compelling enough character that people can differentiate between her and Natasha.
I remember a lot of people saying that she was very much like a little sibling in Black Widow. So given that that was literally her role, yeah.
Well, but the problem is the writing on Black Widow, the movie, wasn't good, and it also came out 2 or 3 years later than it probably should have. Honestly, instead of making a Captain Marvel movie, they should have made a Black Widow movie. And more to the point, it should have focused on the Budapest fiasco that Clint and Natasha have been talking about since Avengers 1.
Um, Better visual effects don't sell movie tickets on their own. Mr. Iger and MCU movies, like all other movies since the beginning of the film industry, succeed on the basis of bringing something special, something deeper to the moviegoer's experience. Anything?
Yeah, I agree. I agree, Ahsoka. You basically could have done the plot you did at the end of Loki, but do it at the end of Kang Dynasty instead, so that when the time travel shenanigans are done, Kang does something that spawns a multiverse, and then you could have done that. That would have been useful. Um, but no, they originally were going to do the smart thing and do the Eternity saga first, and then the Multiverse saga after. But then the James Gunn clusterfuck happened, and they decided not to. And then someone converted Kevin Feige to social justice in the meantime, and instead of doing the 50 years of storylines between the Infinity Gauntlet and modern comics, he jumped right to all new, all different, and now to quote Bill Burr, we're in this room now.
Funny enough, I am actually working on a Quantumania rewrite. It is taking a bit of time just because, from what I understand, I still need to watch the movie itself so I can get a better idea of what to do.
Mm.
There is one idea that I'm keeping just because, like, a lot of people thought that Ant-Man 3 was supposed to be like a setup for the Young Avengers. I would have added Iron Lad or Nathaniel Richards, which, for anyone who doesn't know,
is an alternate Kang that went good.
Well, a past version that is trying to fight the destiny of him becoming Kang.
Yeah, again, it's like I say, an alternate version of Kang that went good. Although you really couldn't have done that, because even before Riri was established, they already established Morgan Stark, and if there's going to be an Iron Man successor, it pisses me off to no end that they still decided to do Riri Williams as Ironheart instead of giving it to Morgan Stark, because you already had a female Iron Man story that people liked. It was Morgan. It's not like the comics where you went straight from Tony to Riri. You already established Tony has a daughter who he gave an Iron Man suit to, and yet she is not Ironheart, because why? Again? And it actually would. Honestly, the daughter of Tony Stark calling herself Ironheart would actually work better, I think. Instead of having it be Riri Williams, who comes right the fuck out of nowhere.
Yeah, Pepper being the one to train her makes sense. To be fair,
or her dad did before he died. I mean, there was a 5-year gap.
He was like 5 or 4. Dude, I doubt he would train her to do the technical.
Yeah, and she's the daughter of Tony, so she probably was a genius. So, and Tony is an ambitious motherfucker who probably wants the best things for his daughter. So yeah.
Either that or become Rescue, which is a version of Pepper.
Honestly, you could do both. You could have Pepper become Rescue and continue her training from whatever her dad taught her before he died heroically. Although there is one thing you would have to address with Morgan that they can't now because No Way Home happened, but it would be there's so much both dramatic and character potential with Peter basically being Morgan's adopted older brother.
Yeah.
Because of the surrogate father relationship he has with Tony. Again, they can't do it now because somebody went and hit the reboot button on whether people even know who Spider-Man is, but
Well, given the time, I don't think we're going to do the positive thing tonight, but yeah, so with that, folks, I want to say goodbye, adios, aloha, avizay, sayonara, peace, cheers, and
2 more days and I'll be 28. Fuck off, everyone. Curfew